All right, we are setting up the live stream directly to the group. And all right, we are rocking and rolling. We are live. So welcome everyone in the group joining us today. Aaron, what's up? Adam, how you doing, man? Good to see you here. And I'm stoked to introduce our very special guest today, the one, the only, the legendary Robert Posey. Now, I asked Robert to join us today because he has a very unique sales system and strategy. And what's up, Kaylee? And his company is responsible for millions and millions of dollars in sales every single year. Basically, what he does is he trains sales teams to connect with online entrepreneurs to get them creating up to, I think, what'd you tell me, Robert, up to 12 times their sales goals for the month. So I'll let you explain a little more of the details, but maybe just introduce yourself to the group. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started in this business that you're running right now.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that intro. Couple things I will, I don't want to, I guess, correct. So I wouldn't say that we have a unique, like, sales system or strategy. I would say that what we have is a unique sales philosophy.
Gotcha.
So
Okay, nice.
at the
Thank you.
at the core of it, it's still fundamentals. Like, we're still having a conversation with people, and we still are trying to turn an interest into a profit. So the fundamentals still work, and I think that's what makes us different. Is we take all of the tips and tricks and strategies that people try to do, and we put them into such a philosophy, if you will, that it removes the fear and makes it conversational. Like it's not so hard to have a difficult conversation with somebody if you aren't worried about all the tricks and strategies you don't know. You're just talking to somebody. Do they have a need, and do I provide a solution to that need? And it makes it a much more organic conversation, and therefore the results are more sustainable. Nice. So and then the other thing too is we do also, yes, we have training and we're building out training now, but what we really focus on is we actually take over the sales systems for these coaches and consultants, course creators, so that they don't have to do it. Because at the end of the day, still, a lot of people are not, you don't get into this to become some sales expert. You get into it because you're passionate about helping people solve the problems that they have. So instead of training them to do it, which, it works sometimes, we just do it for you.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad you brought up the point about removing the fear and making it conversational, because I think probably the one thing I come across most often in the transition to online coaching and consulting is that fear, is that there's always at least a low level of anxiety around the sales conversation. But if we can reframe it, and to your point, like, does this person have a need? Do I provide the solution to that need? And make it more conversational, then we don't have to rely on some of the more skeezy tricks and tactics that exist out there.
Well, so what's interesting that a lot of people, there's like this weird cycle that happens. I guess it's not weird so much. It's just until you've observed it, you don't know it exists. And what that cycle is, basically, you need three parts to every company. You need leads, you need sales, and you need delivery. Well, if you were focused on delivery and you created the best freaking product that you possibly could, people are going to buy that because you get them the result, right? And it makes that sales conversation so much easier when you've done the work. But if you're focused on leads and sales, you don't get to be who you are as the visionary of the company, the person who solves the problem. And therefore it becomes harder to be good at sales. It becomes harder to get leads. So like I have these rules on my wall. These 3 rules I still have from a training I did last night. But the 3 rules, we require them from everybody, every client that we work with. Rule number 1, you must provide a significant, measurable return on investment. Rule number 2, we must have a complete 100% belief in the people, the product, and the process. And rule number 3, we have to be able to laugh together. So
Right.
what I just said about that cycle, being able to actually focus on the thing that you are good at, if we can take that away from you, or if you can remove the focus from I say distractions, they effectively are distractions if you're not an expert and or have time to dedicate to them. But if you can focus on those 3 rules, providing real value is what rule number 1 translates
It's the
to.
foundation.
Rule number 2, you've got to give somebody an ROI. It doesn't have to be monetary. It might be weight loss. But what happens if Jessica calls up fitness coach, whoever, and says, like, I want to get back into my wedding dress and I want to do it by this date. And that person gets that result for them. How excited are they going to be? How pumped? How much, if there's a clean process for doing it, then they are building trust through the whole thing. That's how you develop this. You hear about people talking about tribe of buyers, right?
Yeah.
There's a phenomenal book. So, I got off on a tangent. I'm pretty passionate about this stuff, Brandon.
No, that was great. You bring up an awesome point. Like, yes, you have to provide an ROI, but that ROI doesn't have to be money. There's so many other returns that people feel that is worth it to them to spend their money for a coaching experience. And as long as you're able to provide that legitimate ROI, then you've already conquered like 1/3 of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So tell me about, because
I would say more than 1/3.
Okay, more than 1/3.
if you've got a product that genuinely and consistently returns on the investment, whether it's weight, whether it's time saved, money gained, whatever it is, I would say you've done more than 1/3 of the work.
Nice. Okay.
Because
cool.
people will talk to you. I mean, and talk about you. So keep going. You had a question.
I want to talk a little bit more about your sales philosophy, and kind of dig into that. Now, we've got a lot of coaches in the group here who are just getting started. Now, they might be an experienced coach, but they're just getting started in the digital realm, and very often that involves an enrollment conversation at some point, on a phone call, on a Zoom call, whatever. So if somebody's in that place where they're kind of like just starting out, if you can kind of like rewind and remember what it was like for you to be in that position, just talk to us a little bit about what should that brand new coach, or new to the online space coach, what should they keep in mind? Like, what are the big rocks and the foundations of that sales philosophy that they should be operating within?
Well, so anytime we talk about philosophy or sales strategy, so some of that, what you're talking about is going to the strategy side. We look at what are the big problems, like what are the hangups, where are the fears, and we try to reverse engineer. Start all the way. I'll give you an example. Objection handling. Objection handling is everybody's worst nightmare when they get into selling. Like, I can go through and I can build all this value, but what happens when somebody says, I need to talk to my partner?
Right.
What happens when? So we start with that. And the first thing that has to change is the mindset around sales. If If you are of the mindset that handling objections is sleazy, you're going to have a huge problem selling. But the thing is, we know there's 3 things you need in order to have a business. You need leads, you need sales, and you need delivery.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to have to handle somebody's objection. And so the philosophy that I carry around that particular thing, handling objections, is if you believe, rule number 1, that you provide a consistent, significant, measurable return on investment. Rule number 2, complete total belief in the people, the product, and the process. If you know that you're the right person to help them solve that problem, and somebody gives you an objection and you let them get away with it, if you don't hold space for them, if you don't hold them accountable to the thing that they said they wanted to achieve in their life, you are literally doing them a disservice by not holding them accountable.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's one
powerful,
example.
Man.
Yeah, it is. Like, so that's, you asked me to go back to like a time when I was new. That right there was monumental. It changed everything for me. And if can I share a short story?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. It wasn't my sales call. I won't use any names, but I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine who's a phenomenal salesperson, but as a human, as a keyword salesperson, she's a person. So she deals with the same stuff any of us do. And her particular offer, she helps with food trucks, or did help with people who own food trucks. Her program was like $34,000 a year to be a part of. And she had a really healthy customer base. Well, she gets on a call, and this lady owns a food truck. She's got 2 kids. It's an older woman. She's got 2 kids that are coming of age. She wanted, coming of college age, she wanted to make sure that, they were taken care of. Their future was taken care of. Well, she threw something into the conversation that floored my friend. She said, I have stage 4 cancer. I'm not going to be here for my kids. And if you don't have the work done on yourself to be able to address that, it's over. Like, it's not about the sale anymore. It's about helping that woman get what she needs. She showed up to the call to get help with her food truck.
Yeah.
Because that's where her income comes from. What happened was, my friend let this lady off the call. She said, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, I understand, like, you've got medical bills and you've got things that are like at the top of your mind, and I totally understand. Let me know if I can help you. I'll be here for you. So she handled it politely, but at the end of the day, the lady was there to get a solution. How do I leave a better legacy? Because, like, who needs it more? Like, somebody who's, doing okay in life, and, they got a food truck and it's doing okay. They make enough money to get by and there's no pain. Or the lady who is terminal and has children that she knows she has only a certain amount of time to be there for them.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening, we had a conversation after she let this lady off the call. It was with a trainer of mine. I was in the room present observing this. They made her call back. So she picks up the phone, she calls her back, and she apologized. She said, ma'am, I am sorry. What I did was treated you as if you were already dead. And I'm sorry for that. She said, you have a food truck. You have a problem, a big problem. And I am confident that I can help you. And I want to do my part to get your kids to leave a legacy for them. and I would like to invite you to take part of my program instead of treating you like everyone else. And the lady signed up on the spot.
Nice.
And
Powerful.
I mean, yeah, it is. And so the philosophy, when you take it and remove money from, your income from the sale and make it about the impact, I think that's when you're able to have real conversations.
Yeah.
When you're able to remove your need to, like, it's not, who cares if you get a no? Who cares if you get a yes? You should care only so far as to the solution you're providing to that person. If you leave them worse off, if you knew you could help them and you didn't, if you didn't have a hard conversation or at least give it your best frickin' try, like, why are you doing it? And when you show up with that level of conviction to your call, number one, it's easier to show up to your call because you are convicted. And you know that I have a mission to serve this next person, and I'm fired up to do it. And then if they tell you no, at least you knew you tried. You gave everything you could to make sure that you changed that person's life. And when they threw something in your face and said, I can't do it because, you said, well, the reason you can't is the reason you must. That's one of my favorite quotes. And yes, I use it on sales calls.
Yeah. Oh man, it's totally true. I mean, I come across that all the time. Somebody comes to me and they want to launch a business because they're struggling financially, and they can see other people doing very well, making multiple six figures on or more in the online space. And I explain to them the entire process. And the belief initially is, well, I can't do the program because I'm struggling to make money. But that's the problem that the program solves.
Yeah. You have to do the program so that you can change your mindset and make more money. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
But the thing is, if you haven't done that work on yourself.
Yeah.
I have a sales trainer or had a sales trainer. I will give credit where it's due. I'm not going to share the sales trainer's name because we no longer share the same beliefs. But I will share a story that I learned from this sales trainer. It is, like I said, not my story. But in this training, actually I will. His name's Gulliver Giles, and I think he's got some phenomenal sales trainings. I'll leave it at that. So Gulliver shares a story called the Shield of Perseus. If you know who Perseus is the guy who killed Medusa, the snake hair lady, right?
Yeah.
So Medusa, if you recall back to Greek mythology, if Medusa looked you in the eye, she would turn you to stone, right?
Yeah.
So Perseus, what he did was to polish his shield. He would polish his shield, and he polished the shield until it had a mirror finish. And when he went to fight Medusa, he looked into the reflection on his shield and was able to cut Medusa's head off and ultimately defeat her. If you haven't polished your shield, when someone gives you an objection, if you believe that objection and you haven't done the work on yourself to overcome that objection in your life, you will never close that sale.
Yeah.
You have to do the work. And I think that, what would be a good example of that? I guess a spousal objection. So let's say you get to the end and they give you I've got to talk to my partner. Well, if you are the type of person who's going to go to your partner and say, hey, babe, there's this thing I want to do, and I'm curious, what do you think about it? Well, you just removed your decision. Like, that's not you making that decision anymore. there's no conviction is something I talk a lot about. If you don't have conviction in your decisions, if you don't have the ability to make good decisions based on the data in front of you, it's going to be really hard for you to be a good business owner.
Yeah.
You're making decisions constantly as a business owner. And if you haven't done that work, especially as a coach, and let's say you have somebody asking you, that's what coaching is a lot of times, like, I'm not sure what I should do. And they come to you with help on making a decision. And if you don't know how to look at data and make decisions on your own, so the spousal decision, if you go to your spouse and you're looking for approval to make a decision, when somebody says to you, hey, yeah, this sounds great, I just want to talk to my wife and get her thoughts on it, or I want to talk to my husband, how are you going to address it? Because you might believe them. Like, yeah, I would definitely go to my wife too to make that decision. Nah,
Right.
Not if you believed it. Not if you saw enough value in it.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to say to yourself or say to that person, like, well, here's a good story. An actual one of my salespeople, this sales call was hysterical to listen to. So a guy named Chris gets on a call with a lead. Chris works for me. And he's talking to this guy. They've got great rapport going. They go through the program. They talked about how much money he's got in his bank account. Like, he wasn't bragging, but they had enough rapport to discuss that sort of thing, all inside of an hour. And they talked about how much he loves golf. He had just bought a new set of golf clubs. And if you've ever bought golf clubs, they're not cheap.
Yeah, no kidding.
So he quotes the program, and the guy's like, yeah, well, it makes sense. I'm going to talk to my wife about it. And when I heard this, it was like, I wanted to throw up because of what he said, but he closed the sale. He literally said, bullshit. He didn't even hesitate. The guy said, I got to talk to my wife. He said, bullshit. And the guy was like, excuse me? He said, look, man, we've been talking for the last hour. I think we've got a pretty good relationship going. I just want to point out, you just bought a set of golf clubs. Like, did you go and ask your wife for permission to buy those golf clubs? Was she mad at you for buying the golf clubs, or did you make it through that? No, I didn't ask her. Okay, well, we just talked for the last hour about your future and you signing up for a program that's hopefully going to benefit you and your wife more than that set of golf clubs is. Do you really think she's going to be upset with you for spending the money?
Nice.
And he literally said, and I don't necessarily condone this part, but he said, you told me you had $200,000 in your checking account. Like, what we're talking about doing is pennies compared to what you've worked hard for. And now you're giving me an excuse to talk to your wife. And we both know that it's BS. And the guy said, you're right. He said, you're absolutely right. And they got a credit card and signed him up. If Chris hadn't have done that work, or wasn't the type of strong that it takes to make decisions like that, he never would have addressed it. And maybe they follow up. Maybe the guy shows up. Maybe he gets the sale. I don't know. But
so
people
that's
will
awesome.
make it.
If I could add a little quick commentary, because that just,
Yeah.
I love that story because it highlights that, yes, there's a phase of objection handling at some point in the conversation, usually, but the objection handling is more about, have you done the work to build rapport and understand this person and like genuinely care about them enough to make a recommendation for what they need. Only then do the objection handling words actually carry that level of power. And this story is so great to emphasize that, because Chris had to establish that foundation first to get to earn the right to call this guy out on his limiting belief and help him move forward.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that as it pertains to objection handling, you asked about philosophy. My
Yeah.
philosophy is not that objection handling is this list of like quick, fast responses you should have ready to fire off and shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. Objection handling is understanding someone's need deep enough to help them come to a conclusion that it's the right thing to solve their problem. And you can't know that. You cannot possibly have that information unless you've done the work, you've asked the questions, and you've worked with them to understand and empathize with them.
Yeah.
And so
Love
one of like a really good point to talk about here is burnout. It's very easy to be fired up about what you sell for the first 150 calls. After that, it gets tedious. And what is monotonous to you is brand new to everybody that you're speaking to.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to note that if you're not aware of that fact, then you're going to eventually start to see a slump, and you're going to be blaming yourself. Like, why are my sales down? I need to tweak my funnel. My Facebook ads aren't working anymore. You're going to have all these different excuses when all it really is that you need to show the fuck up.
Yeah.
You need to remember the fire, the thing that was inside of you that originally made you want to hold space for these people and to be their friend and to help them find a solution. And remember that it's not tedious or monotonous to them. It's brand spanking new, and they need somebody who's ready to show up and take them to whatever that next level of their life is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when you think about it, like that's the service element, that's the coaching element behind the sales process, is the willingness to show up and guide someone through a significant decision in their life and to help them overcome their own ambivalence to like, we got to make a decision one way or the other. And even though you handle that multiple times a day on calls with clients, coaching all over the place, showing up with that energy as if it's your first call with this person who's making this significant decision, that's what actually makes the difference.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
Cool. So what else is there within your sales philosophy? And again, for the new coach just starting out, maybe they've felt intimidated by the sales process. Maybe they're fearful of it. Maybe they're feeling a little anxiety around it. Like when you work with somebody and you're helping them learn this sales process or the sales philosophy from the ground up, what do you start with to help them grasp it and then to implement it with prospects?
It depends on who I'm talking to. So are we talking about somebody who's going to be doing their own sales? Are we talking about a sales professional specifically? Or are we talking about a business owner?
Yeah, let's
doesn't
start
want
with
to do
somebody
sales?
who's going to do their own sales. So they're a coach or a consultant. They're just starting out and they're trying to get their first 10 clients, and they're going to be conducting their own enrollment calls. What would you tell them to help them either take that first step forward or just be reassured that they're on the right path?
Well, so I go, like, the whole reason I have my 3 rules is to deal with exactly that. Because, like, yes, we are super successful with a lot of our clients, but there's this other group of people that we can't be successful for. So we built the rules. You must provide a significant, measurable return on investment. Number 2, total belief. And I'm going to repeat these as often as I can because they're that important. Complete, total belief in the people, product, and the process, and having to be able to laugh together. So the first thing, I'm going to start from the back of that list. First thing is, don't let clients in that you don't want to work with. If you start seeing red flags, go with your gut.
Nice.
It's going to slow down the burnout. It's going to make your job easier, and you're going to ultimately be more profitable. Number two, total belief in the people, the product, and the process. Make sure that you have the process in place, or at least the thought around the process that you're going to deliver for these people. They are trusting you. And when you're building this out and you're trying to avoid ups and downs, so what happens is you'll either have, you want little peaks and valleys. It's going to happen. What you don't want is super major, big peaks and valleys. And what you especially don't want is some kind of peak and valley that runs downhill.
Right.
So if you have the people, the product, and the process figured out, that's going to ultimately deliver a result, that's going to make your job easier. The last thing is, do you provide an offer that is going to give a significant, measurable return on investment? So when you show up to these conversations, odds are if you're just getting started out, some people maybe have the ad budget to just plow through Facebook ads and generate enough conversations to, sky's the limit, woo, whatever. Most people, if you look at macroeconomics, 9 out of 10 people have less than $10,000 liquid to their name. I think it's even less now. That stat was I looked it up 4 or 5 years ago. So that said, if you know that you provide that ROI and you don't have the money to go after this Facebook ads and just drive tons of traffic to your perfected funnel, what do? You find the right people through, I would start with some sort of a strategic partnership. Reach out to somebody who has access to people you can help, right? So it might be if you deal with helping people with their money mindset, maybe you reach out to CPAs who want to see their clients succeed. Find somebody that aligns with your mission, have those conversations. Nice. And the conviction we talked about, bring that to that conversation. As far as the actual sales conversation goes, if they're doing it on their own.
Oh, you hit mute there.
Sorry, my phone rang. My computer doesn't connect well to my internet for whatever reason, and so I have to do these on my phone. I lost my train of thought, Brandon.
You were talking about the foundation of the sales conversation being establish a strategic partnership first, so you can get in touch with other professionals who also connect with your ideal client.
Yeah. So I would say take those 3 rules to heart. First of all, you need the mindset when you're showing up to a sales conversation. The next thing I would suggest is find a solid sales script. If you're new to sales, or even if you have some experience, I personally don't use a sales script. I use a call flow. Nice. Or a sales. So the difference being, a script, you're almost reading it, trying to add inflection and tonality, making it sound like it's really you talking as opposed to reading. A call flow, that's what happens when you know your script so well that it becomes second nature. It's almost muscle memory. So when you're starting out, I don't think there's anything wrong with a script. Totally. So I would highly recommend finding somewhere to collect the right words to say in the right situation until you understand how that conversation's going to go. The rest, if you have the 3 rules in place and you truly can provide an ROI, and you truly do have a process that you can articulate easily, people will buy from you. But you need to be able to help them show or realize where their need comes from.
Yeah.
What?
So
So
I want to highlight something though, what you just said, because I'm 100% in agreement with you that when you're starting out, if you need that script or that, like a very detailed structured flow, if you need that, do it. And then as you get better at it, then you become proficient enough that you can just have the flow like basically memorized, and you can go from there. I think the temptation for a lot of new coaches is to see someone who's really good and go, well, they don't use a script, so I'm not going to use any sort of structured process at all. But they don't realize that for that expert to get to that level from day one, they probably started with at least some amount of scripted material or a little more detailed structure before they were able to get to the improvisation phase.
I've probably used a script. Uh, well, I mean, I remember all the way back to when I started sales, I used to use scripts. In my company, we have scripts for every offer.
Nice.
And when I got into high ticket, I probably used a script and had it physically on paper in front of me with highlighted important parts. Probably, I don't know, for the first 300 or 500 calls.
Yeah.
Like, that's no small chunk.
Yeah. That's a lot of reps.
So one of the other philosophies, this comes from at least Heaven and Hell Island, comes from a guy named Kevin Nations. He's another pretty phenomenal sales guy. But I like the analogy that he gives. And so I've started to use it over the last year. When we talk about sales, there's a quote, something to remember. Bling, 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 highlight this. People buy away from pain faster than they buy toward pleasure. If you're pitching features and benefits, then you're trying to pitch pleasure. People buy slower toward pleasure. So what your job is on a sales call is to determine what is that person's hell. Your job is to help them through questions. You're not telling them. It's to ask them questions to help them identify what is hell. Where am I right now? Like, why did I miss little Johnny's baseball game? Well, it's because I didn't have a system in place and I was stuck at the office having to do something that should have been fixed 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? So your job is to ask questions and to help them realize that they're living on Hell Island. The next piece to it is you need to know what their goal is. You need to help them to define what their success is. So there's an emotional attachment to the end result. You need to help them identify the emotional attachment to that end result. And if you can do that through effective question asking, what you're doing, and this is what I use when I set expectations on the call, you're building a bridge. And every question, let's say it starts as a stick bridge. Every question you ask, it reinforces that bridge. So your sticks turn to cross ties. Your cross ties turn to steel. And every time you ask these questions and expose Hell Island and give them a clear picture of heaven, and then when you can tie your solution directly to what that bridge looks like for them, it becomes a no-brainer thing.
Yeah.
And the thing when we talked about reverse engineering objections, there's only a handful of objections: time, money, spouse, trust, information. All of those can be summarized into two objections: value and trust. Do they trust you enough that you can help them? And do they value their Heaven Island enough to make a decision today? Or do they value getting off of, rather, Hell Island enough to make a decision today?
Yeah. I love that. That simplifies it so much. Because
it only took me 10 years to come up with that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like
Most people get caught up in like,
15.
oh, there's this objection, and I have to learn the 80 different objections, and you're like, no, there's only a handful, and even that handful, it's really only two issues. And what's
Yeah,
cool about that is the value and trust. You can clear those up with your process, which is exactly what you were leading up to there. Like if you're willing to ask those questions, help them uncover what's really going on, help them make that, what did you say, identify the emotional attachment to the end result, help
hmm
them arrive there, because most people haven't done the self-reflection to arrive there on their own. And when they have a helpful coach who's helping them make those connections, boom, the value and trust gets built and then fortified through that conversation.
100%. And it really does not have to be as complicated as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
So what else you got, man? Like we're on fire right now. This
Yeah,
is
this no, I was just thinking like this is awesome. I'm thinking like when I first started out, one of the thing, and this is probably more a mindset issue on my part. One of the things that I had trouble getting over was like the nervousness, and it's probably like a mild anxiety over like meeting a new person on every single phone call, right? I always thought like, oh, like, am I going to do well? What are they going to think of me? The point is, that anxiety was all wrapped up around me focused on me, right? And it's like as soon as you can just focus on the other person, and the only thought in your head, like the pre-call prep, right? The only thought in your head is, I'm going to go and explore how I can help this person. All of a sudden you get out of your own head and now you're in like service mode. And when you switch to service mode, all of a sudden there's like this energetic power to that, and the person can feel it. But
hmm
when I was just focused on like, oh, how am I going to do? Like, how am I going to perform on this call? I did terribly. So what
sure.
I wanted to ask you though was, have you come across that when you train new salespeople, or if not, then what do you come
Well,
across mostly when you're training the person who's new to this process?
the thing with salespeople themselves, like sales professionals, that's their career. They're expected to be confident, so they don't talk about it as much as they probably should. But in terms of coaches and people who are doing their own sales, there's a few things that we can talk about around that. And well, we can go deep here. So
Yeah.
there's a few things. You ever heard the statement? Here's another one you can write down. I love quotes. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity,
Yeah.
right? So, number one, and this might step on some toes here, but get over it.
Yeah. Step
If
away.
if if you haven't done the work, if you are not prepared enough to provide significant measurable return on investment, you haven't done the work to have a process to get someone to a result, there's a question: should you be selling that thing?
Mm.
Now the second question that follows is, how do I know until I try? So I'm not telling you to just give up before you start, but I want you to ask yourself, like, I saw an advertisement the other day that said, start an agency with no experience.
Right.
So we have these rules in place because we don't serve people who haven't done the work.
Yeah.
So not to say you shouldn't try, but make sure that you're real with yourself. If you have done the preparation and you know that you can help, then sure, there's going to be a nervousness, but it's a nervousness around meeting a new person who has a new challenge. Like there is just inherent lizard brain stuff that talks about the three questions that the lizard brain asks in any new situation are: number one, will this kill me? Number two, can I eat this? Number three, can I have sex with this? So that's where like the human starts. And the first one is it going to kill me? Well, fight or flight steps in. If you've been training for a decade and you know that you can help, it's going to help alleviate some of that stuff. So repetition is your friend. The second thing here, a mentor, a friend of mine, we were talking about what it is to be nervous. And he said, I don't know where this comes from, but he said something about, quote, so-and-so with X number of years of research determined that the nervous emotion is identical to the excited emotion. So what I would challenge you to do, is if you are nervous, I want you to just take a minute, couple deep breaths, and reframe your nervousness, like jump up and down, like, woo! Like, get excited about the call instead of nervous about the call.
I love that. And I've never heard that before, but when you said it and I thought about it, I'm like, oh, that is true. Like the emotional experience of the two is exactly this. Like they are the same. And you can easily switch from I'm nervous to I'm excited.
Sure.
And it's like they share that commonality of this sense of anticipation. And that sense of anticipation is where you get that emotional rush. And it's just how you frame it.
Yeah. Well, and so there's another point that is to this same thing I would love to bring up here. We talked about the shield of Perseus. Again, not my training. I refuse to take credit for things that are not like my own. So in the shield of Perseus, we work on ourselves. We polish our shield so that when the objection comes up, it doesn't turn us to stone. The same thing happens. You're experiencing an objection to getting on that phone call. You're giving yourself your own bullshit reasons to be nervous.
Yeah.
Now, some of those are real. And I asked you if you wanted to go deep. I'm willing to go deep because I've been able to conquer a lot of this stuff, and it's important for people to hear. When I started in sales, I had a really hard time overcoming objections with alpha male personalities. And everybody does, like to some degree, unless you're also some crazy alpha male, and then what you wind up with is a pissing match. Unless you've done the work and you can show up with the right temperature to that call. So I'll share a short story with me and how I was able to overcome it. Basically, my dad growing up, love my dad, but he is a harsh dude. In a loving way. Like, I don't have some abusive father. Like, I didn't grow up getting punched in the face and stuff like that. But he was always doubting, why do you make that decision? Constant objections. And because he's dad, you don't challenge him. That's your father. That's your authority. So I came to those sales calls, and I didn't have what it took to overcome that personality that was my father. Right?
Yeah.
So the realization I had, it was President Obama's social media director sitting next to me. We were talking about this, and she basically challenged me. She was like, why do you think you need to prove anything to your father? And it was like ding, 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 lights started going off, and it clicked. I don't have to prove anything to anyone.
Nice.
I'm here to prove something for myself. So when you have conviction behind what it is that you sell, and you've done the work and you've addressed the 3 rules, and you can show up with that conviction, it doesn't matter who's on the other end of the phone. Because you know that you can help them achieve or break free from their need and achieve their solution.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Man, yes. And that's so awesome. And I'm going to say, like, for me, that's my number one takeaway from today is, like, if you are willing like really dig deep with yourself and sort out some of that emotional baggage that we're all carrying around all the time. I don't care who you are. We've all got something. If you're willing to deal with that and sort it out, that will have a direct influence over how you then show up for these enrollment calls. So we can talk about, sales tactics and objection handling, the words and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, this foundational piece will have a stronger impact on your success long-term than anything else, really. So listen, we're coming up on the end of the hour, and I got to get jamming on to my next one here in a couple minutes. But if there's someone watching here or watching the recording later, if they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for someone to connect with you, reach out to you? Is there a link? Is there a profile? Like, how should we get in touch with you?
It depends on what they want to do. So I'm happy to connect with everybody. I run my company, like I'm pretty accessible. So if you want, reach out on Facebook. Happy to connect. Robert Posey. I've got a really goofy profile picture with some googly eyes over top of my
I've
eyes.
seen it. I love it.
I don't know if you've seen what book I was reading. I was holding up a book. It's like the world's 50 worst dictators or something. So feel free to look me up on Facebook. The other thing is, if you want to schedule an appointment, I'm an open book, and I'm happy to share. I am a salesperson. I might try to sell you something. My promise is only if you need it.
Right.
So if you want to talk about your own company, your own sales, if you want to talk about the possibility of us working together to get you through that stuff, or have my team take over your own sales processes, just book a call. Very easy URL, chatwithrobert.com. Nice.
Chatwithrobert.com. I love that. I better go see if chatwithbrandon.com is available now.
I'm going to go buy it.
It's so easy to remember.
I'll sell it
and then sell it back at double. Like you said, you only sell it to me if I need it. I really need it, Robert.
I know you do. Tell you what, just a few short lease payments.
Right. And then we'll be set. All right, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time. This is truly, truly awesome. We're really appreciative. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people need to know. They need to understand that, yes, these foundations, you got to sort this stuff out in the background first. And when you do, that's going to lead to all the other stuff where you'll find success. So yeah, man, really appreciate it. I'll let you have the last word. Any parting wisdom for our audience today?
No, I think that we've given everybody enough to chew on there, but I just want to say, like, the information's only as good as the person asking the questions. So truly thank you for asking good questions, and I hope that I was able to bring some value to your group. And if you ever want to do it again, or if you ever need anything from me to help solve problems, man, don't ever hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, will do, man, for sure. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later.
We'll see ya.